see there's a whole bunch of people here that have their Christmas shopping already done.
Really?
You guys are farther ahead than I am. Welcome. This is actually our third public informational meeting for the corridor study that we're moving forward on for exit 6 and exit 7 along the I-293 corridor. My name is Keith Coda. I'm the Chief Project Manager for New Hampshire Department of Transportation. Basically, I am taking charge of overseeing this project as we carry it forward. We do have Vanessa Hagen-Brustman under contract to help us with the corridor analysis and environmental review. With us this evening, I have Marty Kennedy. He'll be doing a presentation of the overall information this evening that we'll be presenting to you. And also with us is Dale Abbott. So he'll be taking notes and stuff for anybody who has comments or requests and so on. I also have here Mike Dukas, who's sitting over in the back area. He's our Chief of Preliminary Design for Bureau of Highway Design. So if you have any questions relative to the engineering aspects, he certainly can help to answer those questions. Mark Lauren is also here from the Bureau of Environment. So if there's anything relative to the environmental aspects, if these guys don't have the answers, we'll get it from them. I'll also like to introduce Councilor Resort. He also would like to introduce another very important person.
Well, thanks, Keith. I'm on the tail end of this thing because January 3rd, I'm going to be gone. But I wanted you to meet my successor, Chris Pappas, who will be taking over on January 3rd. And his number will be published on the website. So if you have to reach him, it'll be there. And you better have your cell phone on there too, so people are going to be able to reach you. But I'm looking forward to him. He's going to be my counselor too. If he doesn't behave,
I know you love it.
I will.
But thank you, Councilor. And as this process goes forward, certainly want to hear from folks, and our information will be public. And this is a very important process. If you've ever sat on the bridge at rush hour or tried to get on 293, it's a pretty dangerous spot. So it's an important project that hopefully we can get some good input here today and move this thing forward.
Very good. Well said. Welcome aboard. Well, we're looking forward to working with you for the next, 5 to 7 plus years. So, what we have this evening is kind of a summary of what we have heard already from you relative to the issues we have in the corridor. We're beginning to develop developing concepts from an engineering side. Looking at different type of engineering configurations, things that we're beginning to focus in on. It's going to allow us to do traffic modeling as well as more refined engineering. You will see very high-level concepts tonight. They will not be able to really distinguish really what property impacts are going to occur, but it will certainly give you an idea as to what we are thinking right now, and we're looking for your feedback. There will be several more public information meetings similar to this as we refine the engineering and as we move forward. But what I plan on doing is certainly let Marty go through the presentation. Then we'll certainly have answers and questions that you may have afterwards. We do have, and Marty will point it out as we go through the presentation, we do have a website set up for the project. We put all our information on there. This presentation here will also be on the website, so you're welcome to download it if you like. And there's all kinds of information there, as well as contact information. Contact information for myself, as well as Marty at VHB. Feel free to email us, call us. If you got some questions, we certainly will do that. Now, as part of the project, we have set up a technical advisory committee, which basically consists of members from the City of Manchester, Town of Hooksett, and the Town of Goffstown, as well as the Regional Planning and the Chamber of Commerce for the city as well as Hooksett. So we have several members here this evening. Members are here. Can you raise your hands, if you would, please? So if you have any other questions, ask them, because they have a lot of that information too. So, but without any further delay, Marty, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Keith. As Keith said, my name is Marty Kennedy. I'm with the engineering firm of Vanessa Hagen-Brustman. And what I'm going to do is the first part of the presentation, I'm just going to recap what we've heard over the last public meeting. And then I'm going to get into showing you the range of concepts that we're proposing to evaluate over the next couple of months. And so let me just start out again. Our VHB is leading the study team, but also on the team with us is the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, who is responsible for developing the traffic model, and RKG Associates, who is the on the team to look at socioeconomic issues. Are we still trying to figure out how to use the mic?
You are on television, we have to use the mic.
Does it work?
Yes, for the television.
Okay. Let me start out with a recap of the study purpose. The purpose of this study is to consider transportation system modifications aimed at addressing capacity and safety-related deficiencies along the main line and at the interchanges, exit 6 and 7, for a 3-mile segment of I-293, including the consideration of relocating and reconfiguring exit 7 into a fully directional interchange. So that's our purpose. That's what we're trying to accomplish with this study. It's all about capacity and safety. Our study corridor, as I said, is about a 3-mile stretch of I-293 that on this map, this is I-293 in red, extending from south to north. This is the Granite Street interchange. So just north of the Granite Street interchange, where the recent improvements have been done, that's the southern extent of our study corridor. And as you move north, you come into the exit 6 interchange at the Amherst Circle. Moving further to the north, we have Front Street and the existing exit 7. And as you know, access to and from Front Street is only to and from the south. There's no access to and from the north at that location. And part of this study is to evaluate the potential of relocating exit 7 further to the north, up just north of the Manchester landfill, which is located here, and to provide access to Front Street, which runs along the river through here, and also access to Dunbarton Road to the west. As Keith said, we've been working with the advisory committee throughout the process. Again, I'm not going to step through all of these, but these are the various members of the committee. Again, Keith mentioned we do have a project website. It's located www.293planningstudy.com. Actually, this presentation, this PowerPoint presentation, will be on the website tonight. So when you go home, you can check it, and you can see everything that's being shown tonight will be on that website. And for that matter, if there's anybody who doesn't have access to the internet, and if you want copies of this website, just give myself or Dale your names, and we'll send you a paper copy of the PowerPoint. But it's all on the website. On the website, for those of you who have not been on it, you can get it. You can go on and get the general overview of the study. You can come over here and click to get on and take a look at the study schedule. Various documents and reports we'll be putting on the website. There is an interactive map. All of the meeting notes of all the previous meetings, as well as the notes tonight, will be on there. We have contact information, the list of the individuals who are on the Technical Advisory Committee, and probably most importantly, there's a feedback page that allows you to go on and ask questions or make comments and suggestions. Those come directly to me, and I will respond to those, anybody. And actually, we've had some really terrific suggestions that have come in already through the webpage. Let me recap the study schedule. We started our work in the spring of this year. The first phase 1, was our data collection phase, which ran from the spring into the summer. Then in the fall of this year, we moved into phase 2, which we called our brainstorming activities. And basically what that was taking all of the input that we received from the earlier meetings and any analysis that we had done, identified the existing deficiencies, and started thinking about what are the potential types of solutions that we should be evaluating. And that's what tonight is all about, is that we're coming to the conclusion now of the brainstorming efforts, phase 2, and we're moving now into phase 3. Phase 3 is to develop and evaluate and screen all the various alternatives. And so what we present to you tonight are the alternatives that we're proposing to be evaluated over the next couple of months. The game plan is to come in, to do all that evaluation through the winter and into the spring of next year, and then by the spring, we'll be coming back with a full evaluation of all the alternatives, both the benefits and the costs and the potential impacts, and we'll be presenting all that back to you in the spring. The idea of being able to wrap up the study by the summer of next year. So that's our schedule. We're still on schedule. Right now, we're right here finishing up the brainstorming phase 2 and beginning to enter phase 3, the evaluation of alternatives. Let me just recap for you the meetings that we've had to date. We had, back on June 27th, we had our first advisory committee meeting. That was just prior to the first initial public informational meeting, which occurred on July 18th. We had another follow-up advisory committee meeting on the 13th of August, and that led into the first public workshop, which occurred on September 18th. After that workshop, we met again with the advisory committee to kind of recap and discuss what we heard at the public workshop. And then actually in October 10th, we had a briefing with the Hooksett Town Council just to give them an update of what we've been doing on the study. Most recently, we had another advisory committee meeting on December 4th. The purpose of that was to go through some of the alternatives we're presenting you tonight, to give the advisory committee an opportunity to give us some feedback on what we're presenting tonight. And then finally, tonight we have, this is our third public meeting. The public input that we received at the workshop, we had asked people to come into the workshop and to give us input in these 3 areas. What do you see as the problems? What do you see as the issues and constraints? And what do you see as potential solutions? And so I'm just going to very quickly recap some of the issues that we heard. This is not the complete list, but some of the problems that were identified at the workshop: backups onto the highway from exit 6 northbound off-ramp, traffic that backs back onto the highway; poor sight lines and approaching exit 6 around the curve and being able to see the backups at the northbound ramp; noise levels from the highway from residents of the Point at Riverfront Condos, as well as residents along Stock Lane; the proximity of the south exit 6 southbound on and off ramps, where we have a heavy weaving condition where traffic is entering the highway and exiting the highway in close proximity; traffic congestion, delay up on top at the Amoskeag Circle; exit 7 coming off the off-ramp and down into the intersection at Front Street and the issues there. And also just beyond that is the driveway to the community college, because there's a number of safety issues getting in and out of the driveway at the college. And also with respect to the effects of truck traffic that uses Front Street to get out onto the highway. Some of the issues and constraints that were raised include the proximity of residential homes to the highway, the Manchester landfill, the proximity of the river, where we're dealing with trying to upgrade the corridor and we're running along the river, the historic mill district, and also the challenging topography in the area of exit 7, where we're looking to relocate exit 7. Some, again, just a very partial list of some of the suggestions that were made. If you're talking about widening the corridor, do you widen to the east, do you widen to the west? Addressing those visibility issues at exit 6, particularly in the curve area. It was suggested we improve some signage. There were various interchange reconfigurations that we talked about. Different types of traffic control, whether it was traffic signals or roundabouts or stop control, or for that matter, grade separated, where you eliminate the intersection altogether and have some type of a grade separated option. Noise barriers brought, again, from the residents who are located close to the highway, looking for any solutions to include noise barriers to address those concerns. And for that matter, in addition, and I know this is a highway project, but we also need to consider such things as pedestrian and bicycle mobility close to the intersections close to the highway, and also consider aesthetic enhancements. Again, it's a highway project, but it needs to fit into the community. Tonight, when I'm talking about alternatives and solutions, I'm going to be talking in terms of near-term or interim actions, long-term alternatives, or mid-term alternatives. Now, when I talk about near-term, interim actions, what I'm talking about here is there can be some suggestions made while we're going through the study that the DOT could actually go out and just take care of relatively small projects that don't cost a lot of money, and there are some things that can be done even before the study is even complete. So those are the types of actions I'm talking about when I say near-term actions. The longer-term action alternatives, those are really the big fix. I mean, this is a planning study, and so our objective is to identify what is it that's needed out for many, many years in the future. What is it that will fix the problem long-term? And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about long-term solutions. And the last category, which I call midterm, is once we identify what the long-term solutions are that fix all the problems, it's possible that given the fact that some of these longer-term improvements are going to be certainly going to be expensive, and it's going to be many years before some of them will be able to actually be constructed, it's possible that there are some type of actions that would involve some construction and cost some dollars, but may address a problem for a short period of time. And we may want to give consideration of looking at some of those while we're waiting for the longer-term plan. So I'll talk about those as well. Okay, let's start with the near-term actions. At Exit 6, and this came out of the workshop, and also there were some suggestions that came out through the website. One of the issues that was raised was this is the Exit 6 with the northbound off-ramp at this point coming into Amistad Circle. Because of the congestion up here at the circle, traffic backs up down the ramp, and it actually backs onto the highway at times. You've got high-speed volume traffic moving along the highway, coming around this curve. And there's a lot of, there's brush and shrubs in this area that actually reduce the sight line. So if you're coming around the curve, you couldn't see people on the ramp. Well, it was suggested at one of the meetings that somebody said, well, why don't you just go out and, cut back some of those shrubs? Well, the DOT did that. They went out and cut back those shrubs. So here's a picture of the, I actually showed this picture at the very first meeting, where if you're heading northbound on 293, the ramp is just off to the right. And you can see the shrubs in this area. You can't see the traffic backed up on that ramp. Well, the DOT went out and actually, because the foliage is gone, so it's not, it's a little bit deceiving, but if you look at the area right in here, all that brush has been removed. So comparing to this area right in here to now where you can see traffic coming around this curve. And that was a fairly simple solution that helped address immediate action, and it was suggested at one of the earlier meetings when the DOT went out and took care of it. And that's what I'm talking about, some of these, and there may be other solutions as we move forward that can address some of the problem. Another area that we're looking at as far as these more near-term solutions is, another issue is the southbound traffic coming down 293, and you have a heavy volume entering at this point, heavy traffic exiting at this ramp. You've got that weaving condition. It was suggested to us at the workshop that, well, is there a way to maybe put some advanced signing? So at least you alert the motorist to there's some congestion there. Maybe they should, could the through traffic shift to the left as you're coming through that area? We are currently looking at and evaluating different options for some types of dynamic message signing. And again, I can't make any commitments right now, but we're looking at the possibility of, doing some type of, detection on the ramps so that you can tell when the congestion gets to a certain point, and then there'd be a sign where a message might come up to just alert people to, expect congestion at the ramps ahead, or shift to the left of the through track, something along those lines. So we're thinking about and evaluating those possibilities, and when we get back and do more evaluation, we'll come back and show and let you know when those are. But those are the types of things we're looking at as we're calling near-term type actions. Before I get into presenting the overall concepts that I want to show you tonight, I want to just do a quick overview of some terms that I'm going to be talking about. In particular, most of the discussion I'm going to be talking about tonight is different types of interchanges. When we talk about upgrades at exit 6 and 7. So I want to just run through for you the different types of interchanges that we'll be talking about. So let's start in with on the left-hand side of this picture, this is what's called a diamond interchange. So when I refer to a diamond interchange, I'm talking about an interchange where you have an off-ramp that comes off the highway, comes into an intersection. It would either be stop sign controlled or a traffic signal at that location. And then you would come up and take a right or take a left and do that, or you would have an on-ramp that goes back onto the highway, and in the other direction you'd have an off-ramp that comes to another intersection, and an on-ramp that goes back onto the highway. I think many of you have seen and familiar with these typical diamond interchanges. So when I mention a diamond interchange, that's what I'm talking about. Then on the right-hand side is a single-point urban interchange. That's the type of interchange you have at Granite Street at exit 5 that was put in. The difference between these two is that you have a single traffic signal in the center of the interchange, and the movements come in tight, and you have the left turns that move at the same time. So when we talk about a single-point urban interchange, that's what we're talking about. Other potential options is this is a diamond interchange, same ramp configuration, but rather than traffic signals, roundabouts up on top of at the end of the ramps. And to the right, we have what's called a diverging diamond interchange. And this is, there are none of these actually within New England, so it's very unconventional. They're probably very unfamiliar to almost all of you here. What a diverging diamond is you still have the same on ramps in a diamond configuration, and you would have traffic signals on either side, much like a typical diamond interchange. But the difference is the configuration, where rather than coming up and taking a left-hand turn, crossing the traffic like you typically would at a traffic signal at a regular diamond, you actually have the section between the two signals. The traffic is running in the reverse direction, meaning that the left turn comes up and is on this side, and while the through traffic is running on this side. And I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like. It's a little confusing because for that small section, you actually have the traffic on the wrong side. But from an operational standpoint, it actually is much more efficient. It can process more traffic because it has two simple phases the way it operates, as opposed to a three-phase signal at a diamond interchange. But anyway, we're not going to get too much into the details of that tonight. And one thing, while I think about it, because the diverging diamond is new and it's different, and it takes a while to get a handle on what I'm talking about with that, I'm going to put information on the diverging diamond on the website. So in your leisure, you'll be able to go in there and read about it and see more information about it. So, but anyway, I am going to be talking about that tonight, so I did want to show it. Also, when I talk about cloverleafs or partial cloverleafs, what we're talking about is interchanges that have loop ramps where you enter the highway by way of a loop. Okay, just very quickly, I want to show you just how these operate. And by the way, these are not what the actual alternatives which we're showing tonight, but just I put a couple of simulations together here. This is a typical diamond interchange. So what for example, here's a traffic signal, here is a traffic signal. So you see, you come up, you take a left-hand turn when you get the green light up the off-ramp, and you move through the intersection. And I think most of you are familiar with that type of operation at a diamond type interchange. If we go to a single point, this is a single point operation. And so again, you can see all of the movements are happening at one intersection in the center. And by the way, notice, for those of you, the Granite Street single point interchange is located below the highway. The highway passes above. On this particular simulation, it's up above. The actual interchange is on top. And at the way exit 6 is laid out, if it's one of the options, if we go with a single point there, it will be above, and the highway would be below. But again, I just want to show you for how those actually operate. Here's a cloverleaf, and again, very simple. I think many of you have driven through loop ramps on interchanges. Now here's a divergent diamond interchange, and so here you see you come off the ramp here, and you're actually on the wrong side of the bridge. So normally you would be coming up, taking a left-hand turn, and getting on this side. The reason why you run on the opposite side between these segments is because you've actually created a very simple two-phase signal here and up in here. And again, I'm not going to get into all the details with you tonight, but it is, for that reason, more efficient and you can process more traffic. But as we get further in the study, if there's interest in this, we'll get in more explanation about exactly how it operates. And lastly, I said you also have an option of roundabouts at these intersections. When you have a roundabout, you still have the same general configuration, but now instead of signals, traffic comes up and it enters the roundabout when there's a gap in the roundabout, and you travel through in that fashion. So those are I just wanted to show you how those operate. And by the way, when we come back in the spring with the actual alternatives, we'll show real volumes on these simulations on the actual alternatives. But this, I just wanted to give you a sense of what they look like. Okay, so now we're at the point where we're going to run through and give you a sense of what we're talking about, the actual conceptual alternatives for this study. And first thing I want to note, on every single concept plan I'm going to show you tonight has this note. And it says, plans show conceptual ideas. No determinations regarding property acquisition have been made. This is an important point. This is a planning study. I need to be able to show you these various configurations so you get a sense of what these things look like. We are nowhere near along in the process of designing these so that we can tell whether this particular widening is happening here and affecting this property or affecting this property. And so I have to show these lines somewhere on the plan so we know what we're talking about. But it's really important to recognize that all of these can shift one way or the other. And it's a long process. So just keep that in mind as we're showing these various alternatives. We're going to start out at exit 6. Now, at exit 6, in this diagram, again, north is to the right, south is to the east. We've got Front Street, Eddy Road, Ambuscade Bridge. This is Goffstown Road up in this area. As I said, at exit 6, the primary problems here it's the congestion up on top of the circle, traffic that backs up onto the highway from the northbound ramp. And in the southbound direction, you have the heavy volume of traffic entering at this point, exiting at this point, and again entering at this point. You've got all that weaving activity happening. So that's what we're trying to fix when we're looking at solutions here. So if we start out and say, well, here's an option. One option would be to come in with a single point urban interchange somewhere at this location, which would bring an off-ramp into the interchange, on-ramp onto the highway, northbound on-ramp into the interchange, and northbound off-ramp at that location. Similar to Granite Street, the only difference would be it would be above, and the highway would be below. Now there's one complication at exit 6 with doing this type of interchange, and that is Front Street and Eddy Road has an intersection right there. And that intersection is too close to this single point interchange in order for that to operate. And in order to maintain the access and the circulation from Goffstown Road, Front Street, Eddy Road to Amoscape, we need to modify this basic concept to something that looks like this. And the way this option, our single point option for exit 6, would have the single point here, again with the off and on ramps at this location. You would effectively eliminate the intersection, the signalized intersection of Front Street and Goffstown Road, and Goffstown Road would come over the top into this intersection, and Front Street, Eddy Road, would be underneath. And you could travel directly from Front Street to Eddy Road without an intersection. You would, however, have some type of an intersection down in this area that would come and allow a connection that would come over the highway and back to a signalized intersection somewhere in here. That would provide you all the movements in that area. So you have your interchange here, but you still have all your connections. So for example, if you're coming up Eddy Road and you wanted to go to Goffstown Road, well today you come up to the signal and take a left here. Well, you wouldn't be able to do that because you're underneath. So you'd come up, you take a right-hand turn, a left, and go in that fashion. So all the movements are there. You'd have the improved interchange, but you have to do something slightly different than at Granite Street in order to accommodate all the movements. Okay? So that's going to be one of the alternatives that we're going to evaluate, the single point at this location. Another alternative that we're going to be looking at is the diamond interchange. And the diamond interchange would be located over in this area, where you would have the southbound off-ramp that would come in at this point, an on-ramp that would come in to the southbound, the northbound on-ramp would come into an intersection here, and then you would have a northbound ramp entering in that fashion. And so you'd have traffic signals up on top, typical diamond-type configuration. Again, you would have all your same movements here, and the intersection at Goffstown Road and Front Street now would not have this connection to Eddy Road. You would still have the connection from Front Street to Goffstown Road to Amoscape. But if you wanted to, for example, go from, again, Eddy Road to Front Street, you'd come along here, take a left, and then you could go down Front Street. So again, you have all the connections, it's just different configurations. And again, we're proposing that we're going to evaluate this as another alternative for potential solution at exit 6. Another potential solution we're going to evaluate is it's the same general configuration. It's the diamond interchange, has the same connections. The only difference, this is the diverging diamond that has the reverse direction within this section. And so when we look at this, we're really just looking for, is there a difference between the efficiency of the operation? Because the layout and the impact is essentially the same as the standard diamond interchange. And actually, very similarly, we'll be looking at the same general layout of a diamond interchange, but with roundabout control up at the interchange. So again, all same connections. The question's going to be is how those various ones operate, which ones are better than others, and so on. Okay, at this point, those, by the way, I just described are the big fix, the long-term solutions. Those are major reconstruction of that interchange. And major dollars, and it takes a long time before those will be in the ground. I did talk about some potential midterm type actions. And if you remember, what I said was the existing problem today, the heavy, high traffic volume entering this ramp coming onto the highway, while you have heavy traffic exiting in that direction and also traffic entering here. If we were to come in as a midterm solution and close this ramp completely, close this on ramp, and create some type of an intersection off in here. So this is the existing off ramp today, You maintain that location, you bring an off-ramp, give a little more room so you have some additional distance for stacking coming off the highway, and have a signalized intersection somewhere here, where now, rather than entering directly on at this point, you would come down into this intersection, take a left-hand turn, and enter at that point. And for that matter, you don't need this ramp, because this traffic would come in, turn, and enter at that location. And so by doing that, what you've done is you've eliminated the weave. You still have traffic exiting and now traffic entering at one point. Now, the thing about this is that the volume of traffic that's entering that ramp at that point is very high. And if you take that volume and now bring it down to a signalized intersection where it has to take a left-hand turn, from an operational standpoint, and again, we haven't completed all the analysis, but our preliminary look at that says, well, that may be challenging to make that work, so this doesn't back up, because the volume is so heavy. Another alternative that we're going to look at, in order to address that problem, is you could conceivably do something like this. Maintain the same intersection, bring traffic off at this point, you still have closed this. But rather than this heavy movement that would come in and take a left at an intersection, now it comes in and gets on this little loop and crosses over and enters the highway that way. And so you don't have, now that left turn, that heavy volume doesn't have to go through the traffic signal. Now, under this particular alternative, you would have, this ramp is closed, so you bring traffic around that ramp and enter here. Obviously, when we do this, we need to make sure there's enough, distance here to, bring the traffic onto the highway, safely. And you'll notice that we have traffic merging, this movement and that movement is merging right in that area. Another alternative that we're proposing to look at that would address that type of tight condition of merging there would be to do something like this. Again, you have that's closed. You still have the off-ramp that comes onto it, intersection here, signalized intersections. And now, the traffic that previously was entering the highway at this point would come down to this intersection, take a right-hand turn into this loop. This goes up and over and onto the highway, and you have your on-ramp at this location. And for that matter, the traffic previously that was getting on at this point, now we would come up to this intersection, take a left-hand turn, get onto the same loop, and enter the highway that way. So again, these types of solutions do not fix the big problem, but potentially there's a way to do, and by the way, this is not inexpensive dollars. Building intersections, building ramps are significant dollars. But possibly, it may be that if the long-term solution for exit 6 is going to take 10, 15 years for it to be built, and you could do something that could improve the situation over 5 or 10 years, this may be a consideration. So we're evaluating these different options and come back to the benefits and costs and so forth of these various options. Another suggestion that was made, and we were asked to look at, was, again, this question of traffic backing up from the ambuscade bridge. What we have is heavy traffic coming the northbound on-ramp, and it has to merge with traffic coming around the circle. There's a couple of things we're proposing to look at. One is, in this relative short term, there's a single lane of traffic that comes up this ramp. But what if we were to widen the ramp slightly enough to at least store 2 lanes of traffic on the ramp? That way, at least you get more stacking distance. So rather than 1 lane back in the highway, now you've got more distance because you can bring 2 lanes up into the circle. The other possibility is to look at, what about providing some type of traffic signal control? And rather than having this, weave, and you get a fight across the circle, is it possible to have, when you come up the ramp, have some type of traffic control here that allows this movement to go, and then the movement that comes around the circle go at separate times? One gets the green, one gets the red. That's another option that we're looking at. If we have some type of traffic signal control here, you know, you have an existing signal at that location, you have an existing signal at this location, so obviously that signal has to be put into a system, it all has to work and be coordinated, so we need to look at that. But that's another potential that may be, it's not the long-term fix, but maybe that's something that could address that issue in the midterm. Now, one other consideration when we start talking about these long-term and midterm type potential fixes is the question is, what if you do one of the midterm and you spend $5 million building a new intersection? Well, do you want to rip it up and start all over again when you do the long-term? So you need to consider which of the midterms maybe fit well into the longer-term solution. And that's, again, we'll be evaluating that and coming back with you with the advantages and disadvantages of each. But just to give you a sense of what we're talking about, here's an example. If you were to come in and construct this type of midterm solution, bringing this intersection, the ramps, and closing this, well, maybe the long-term solution is you maintain that, and then you come back and you have your diamond over here, your off-ramp, on-ramp, and have a signalized intersection at Front Street in Goffstown that connects to Eddy Road with your ramps at this configuration. So this is sort of a kind of an offset diamond or a modified version. I'm not saying that they necessarily go together, but I'm saying that if you put one in, you need to think about what that leads to and what's the most efficient way of having something midterm that matches the long term. Another example, if you were to come in and do this type of configuration, this loop, well, maybe that fits well with this type of configuration, where you have the ramps over here and this diamond at this location, but you still have the loop configuration. Again, I'm not saying this is those two necessarily go together, but I'm saying we're going to evaluate all those various options and come back to you and say what are the advantages and disadvantages. If you do one, does it lead to one of the others? By the way, this is the well, that's the standard time. You need to consider that if you're doing this or the single point or other variations, you know, does it preclude doing any of these other things we talked about? So again, all of that will be looked at, and we'll be coming back with that evaluation as well as the long-term plans. Okay, let's move on to exit 7. At exit 7, we've been asked to take a look at relocating exit 7 further to the north. And as I said, exit 7 today only has access to and from the south. And any interchange that upgrade will provide access to and from the north. This is the existing location of exit 7. This is at Front Street. You have a ramp coming off, ramp going on, but you have no connection to and from the north. By the way, the Manchester landfill is located here. This is where the community college is, right off Front Street. We've been asked to look at the potential of relocating exit 7 further to the north. However, when we look at these alternatives, in order to be thorough, one of the things we need to do as an alternative is to look at, can you provide that same northbound access at the existing location? So one of the alternatives that we need to evaluate is, first of all, physically, could you construct this is a diamond interchange, tight diamond interchange at Front Street. And then the second element of that is, even if you can construct that, does it work from a traffic perspective and a traffic flow perspective? Because although this provides you access to and from the north, it does not provide you the connection to the west over to Dunbarton Road that you would get from relocating exit 7. Now, if we go further to the north, and this is the area where we're looking at potentially relocating exit 7. Again, this is existing exit 7 here, Front Street, Community College, the landfill. This is Dunbarton Road. This is Goffstown Road that runs in this direction. we're looking to try to relocate this interchange up in this area somewhere. So one of the alternatives would be to come in and try to create an interchange in this area. By the way, note the loop here, and that's because of the landfill. You might typically think about having a diamond ramp and an on-ramp, but to avoid getting into the landfill, you would do some type of a loop. So here's that combination of a partial cloverleaf with the typical diamond ramps. This alternative shows providing connections both north and south, new interchange here, and this connector road actually would go underneath 293, and it would provide a connection down to Front Street somewhere. And it would also connect up to Dunbarton Road somewhere. Again, we need to evaluate where that's going to be. Now, when we look at various alternatives, a lot of the alternatives down in this section is going to be where do we match into Front Street? Because that's going to be challenging. It actually doesn't show, the river is just off the picture here, but you've got the river right on the other side of where you come down onto Front Street. There's not a lot of room there. And we need to consider providing, how we're going to provide access to the community college. And there's a residential community over here. And so we'll be looking at different alternatives to provide, do we come in here and provide access off of the roadway in this fashion? Do we come in, move over here somewhere and provide access in these ways? Somewhere in this area, we're going to be evaluating a number of different configurations. What's the best way to get down to Front Street and still provide access to the abutting properties? Now, another option is to look at this connection further to the west. The previous option I showed you showed a connection to Dunbarton Road. Actually, the city had looked earlier, a number of years ago, at a connection that, rather than running in this direction, kind of hugged the landfill area, crossed Dunbarton Road, and actually went over to Goffstown Road. Now, the advantage to something like this is that traffic today that goes down Goffstown Road comes into exit 6. If you had that connection, it could come into exit 7 and potentially reduce traffic here and potentially reduce the need to do as much improvements at exit 6. However, the downside and the challenge to doing this type of connection is this is Black Brook. It goes to, so you'd have to have crossing of the brook, and although not shown on this plan, there are substantial wetlands up in this area where that road would need to go through, and that would be a challenge. But anyway, we're going to be looking at that as an alternative and identifying the pluses and minuses of these various alternatives. Let me say a few words about the main line along 293. First off, as far as the highway itself, I talked about the various interchanges at 6 and 7. Along the main line, the basic alternative is, can we do what we want to do, upgrade the interchanges, and leave the number of lanes as it is today, 4 lanes, 2 in each direction? Or do we need to increase the capacity of 293 and add an additional lane in each direction, make it 6 lanes, 3 lanes in each direction? So the alternatives that we're looking at the main line is basically hold the 4 lanes or widen to 6 lanes. So it's a pretty simple as far as the alternatives. And when we look at any widening throughout the corridor, we're going to be trying to obviously minimize impacts on either side. We've got the river on one side, we've got properties on the other side. So we need to be careful to minimize those impacts. The one challenging area is right here at the curve. This is where we're right along the river, and this is the Amoskeag Mill Historic District. We've got these mill buildings right out here close to the highway. And so what we need to be looking at is, can we get a upgrade section through here, underneath Bridge Street, without, fitting it within without touching that bridge, and then minimizing any impact to the river or to the mill district. That's going to be our challenge, and we're going to be coming back to you with alternatives of how we can do that and how to minimize those impacts. One last thing I want to mention about the alternatives. I'm not going to spend too much time with this, but I spent all the time talking about the building construction, doing something, upgrading the interchanges, widening the highway, those types of things. In addition to those alternatives, we're going to be looking at and comparing those to what we call TDM actions, transportation demand management type strategies. And there's a whole range of strategies. In a future meeting, I'll talk to you a little bit more about those. But they range from different, this is just an example of some types of things, but whether it be, the communities get more aggressive as far as, carpool, van pool, using park and ride facilities, even such things as, improved bicycle connectivity, that these are types of actions that try to reduce the volume of traffic on the highway. You can even have, employers in the area doing such things as staggered work hours, so maybe there's not as much traffic out there at 5 o'clock. And it's those types of things that, again, when we get into the report, we'll be talking about those different actions, things that the community could even do, including, even some land use planning. The communities in this area, depending on how you do your long-term planning, if you look at like mixed-use development that's more efficient and doesn't generate as many trips from one part of the city to the other, those are all actions that we'll be talking about again in the reports, and we'll be getting more information to you. But I didn't want to leave that out. So in addition to the configurations, we'll be talking about these TDM type actions. Okay, quick recap. So what we talked about here is the near-term actions, long-term alternatives, and these mid-term alternatives. Those near-term actions where the DOT has already gone out and cut back some of the shrubs on the highway. We're looking at those potential of dynamic message signing to address the traffic southbound on 293. We'll get back to you again when we have more information on that. The long-term alternatives, at exit 6, we'll be looking at the single point urban interchange. We'll be looking at the standard diamond, the divergent diamond, the diamond with the roundabouts, and also those other kind of offset modified diamond configurations. At exit 7, again, we have the tight diamond at the existing location. We'll be looking at the, that single loop and that partial clover leap at the relocated location. And then all those various front street connections, where do we connect and how do we connect to the adjacent properties? And then the alternative of do we go all the way to Goffstown Road or stop at Dunbarton Road. So those are the major long-term alternatives. And the midterm alternatives I looked at, these are all at exit 6. But again, it's the the Eddy Road intersection, the Eddy Road intersection with the flyover, the Eddy Road intersection with the loop ramp, and then those on the northbound exit 6 ramps. We had that potential widening of the ramp to provide an extra lane and potentially signalizing that operation. So we're evaluating those as well. So that's the end of my discussion. I just want to remind you that, again, this is contact information, both Keith and myself. This presentation, as I said, is going to be on the website. It's probably, I think it may be on there as we speak. We've loaded it on there tonight. We're going to open this up and allow you to ask questions and provide comments, but I would remind you that you can use the website. You can go home and tomorrow or next week, take your time and go through the PowerPoint and look at those various configurations. And you can provide your comments right on the website. You can send me questions. You can pick up the phone and you can call me or you can email me, and I'll get back to you and answer any questions that you have. And so we're not rushing you. You don't have to tell us tonight, whether you like something or you don't like something. We're going to give you the opportunity to do that. But over the next week or so, if you could look at these options and get back to us and tell us what you think about them. Because from this point right through to the spring, we're going to be doing a detailed evaluation of these alternatives. And so I'd rather hear now from you what you think about them than wait until the spring and then raise some issues. So with that, we're going to open up. If anybody has any questions, thoughts, let us know.
Thank you very much. I think that it's important that when we talk about alternatives, I've been in Concord before, understand that when you put in a short-term alternative, it may end up being a long-term alternative because the next time you see it on a plan could be an awful long time away because people up there will say, you've already had your opportunity. The midterm alternatives are the same. Changing it to a 3-lane directional on the highway, that's a little bit much of what I think we should be talking about. We should be looking at an alternative that is long-term. How do we get it moved up on the 10-year plan? How do we get the project done? Rather than talking about short-term, which means it's long-term, because if they spend $5 million, they're not coming back for an awful long time. So I would rather eliminate short-term, mid-term, and talk about long-term, and how do we fix the problem? Because there is some serious congestion here. When you start talking about stopping the 2 exits or entrances on the west side of the highway to go south, there's congestion there and trying to bring it around on some different loops to eliminate the short-term problem. We're going to be stuck with that problem, and it will be our fix. And I don't think that's the fix that the citizens of Manchester are looking for. So I think that it's important that we try and look at what's the most constructive and least expensive method going forward so that we can get some relief between exit 6 and 7.
Anybody else? We know that we threw a lot at you this evening. There certainly some different concept levels of engineering layouts. We will be passing out honorary civil engineering certificates this evening. So, again, we do have information, contact information. Our intent, again, is just to kind of give you a flavor of what we're looking at. Where are we going from here? Okay. The objective of this study, again, is to look at corridor analysis. Looking at corridor solutions. It may not be one solution. There may be multiple approaches that solves the problems relative to capacity and safety. What you really need to keep in mind, too, is capacity and safety go together. Because each of them are dependent upon each other. If you have good capacity, you have increased safety. If you have bad capacity, you have higher risk, lower safety. That's kind of the purpose of this project. It's not only just the terminal. We're also looking at interchange configurations at exit 6, because we know that there's issues up there with the way the traffic flow is moving. So we want to make sure we try to address the long-term needs, as the mayor indicated. The major objective here is looking at the major long-term improvements we can make with the investment we can spend dollars. So in essence, what we're going to be doing at this point, we're going to take these concepts, these kind of high-level concept layouts, run it through the traffic model, get a feel for what the traffic distribution is going to be, how well we can move traffic through this corridor. We're not looking at today's traffic. We're looking at 20 years out. We're projecting traffic out 20 years, because that's the kind of investment that we're looking to make. You don't want to go out there and spend $20 million or $30 million to just solve today's needs. This is really not a good investment of our tax dollars or our turnpike dollars. So we want to look out in the future. So we're projecting the traffic flow out for the 20 years, running it through the traffic model, get a feel for what the traffic flows are. left turn movements, how heavy is the volume? Can we do it in a two-lane configuration, single-lane configuration? Same with the right turn movements at ramps and so on, like these different concepts, and see how they can actually function. Looking at Exit 7, Exit 7 is going to be very important in the final conclusion of our study, because we're looking at, as Marty indicated, one of the alternatives we need to look at is the existing interchange. Even though it doesn't provide some of the purpose of the corridor study that we had, we still need to analyze it. That's an environmental issue that we have to analyze. So we'll look at it, see if you get a full interchange at Exit 7, how does it work with the traffic? Does it complicate Exit 6, or does it help Exit 6? We don't know, but we will find that out. So then we'll be looking at a new interchange for Exit 7. Its connection to Dunbar or Goffstown. If you think about it, if you're on Goffstown road traffic, most likely will probably look to come down this new corridor, access the interchange faster, and basically bypass the intersection down at Exit 6. But if you carry that connection further over, okay, then there's a possibility there's going to be more traffic relief for Exit 6 as a result of the benefit of the new interchange at Exit 7 carried over further to Goffstown. But the catch on that is the environmental side. It's a very sensitive environmental corridor we've got to pass through. So we've got to balance the need. We've got to show that there's a support reason for traffic safety and capacity to justify the additional impacts of the environmental conditions. We're just starting with environmental systems. By the time we start looking at these formal concepts, we start analyzing them a little further degree, and then we start going out to our resources, our cultural as well as our natural resources. State Historic Preservation Office, the Corps of Engineers, Department of Environmental Services, Fish and Wildlife, and Game. When they start getting input on that, they hold our feet to the fire. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to justify the decision that we have to make. At the same time, get your feedback. Because feedback from the public is very important. If you haven't attended previous meetings, one of the things I didn't know from previous meetings is Black Brook River. We have a project ready to rehab bridge, turnpike bridges over the Black River. We put that project on hold because our commissioner, Commissioner Campbell, basically said, well, how does this improve it? We're going to spend $3 million making this bridge improvement. How does that fit into the long-term needs of the turnpikes? We didn't have an answer. So we put that project on hold in order to accelerate this corridor analysis. That's kind of the interim improvement we're talking about too, the midterm. Because if we find that the ultimate solution, whatever the solutions are, it basically says that the investment that we're going to make as part of the Black River bridges, we can just basically maintain that investment. I mean, we don't have to throw it away, build what we need to build, to rehab these bridges. We can just widen on the existing bridges. But that's a worthy investment because we know we need to address those bridges at some point here in the near future. But we don't want to put investment in there and completely throw it away later. So that's what we're looking at. But ultimately, our objective is to find a solution that meets the capacity and safety for this corridor between Exit 6 and Exit 7, basically from the connectivity to Exit 5 to the north of Exit 7. So I know we threw a lot at you this evening. Certainly, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, Marty a call, email, website-wide. You can put in your question. We'll certainly get back to you on it. The task force committee basically does meet as public meetings. We post them at the city here as well as the two communities. And they will also be posted on the website as to the time and date, location of those meetings. We're welcome to attend, listen into the discussion. Typically, we provide opportunity for the public to provide some feedback. There's a lot of issues out there we still got to address. I don't have all the answers for you this evening, but given probably into next summer, we'll have more of the information that will answer a lot of your questions. So, any questions? Any anything comes to mind, we did such a great job that you guys totally informed.
You mentioned one of the design engineering firms is RKG, looking at social economic issues. When do they kick in to start their analysis? Is it while the engineering design is going on, after, and what influence will they have on those final recommendations?
Good question. I'll pass that over here.
They're actually already involved, collecting some base information, but ultimately at a planning study level, what their task is to lay out these alternatives, to provide input and evaluate what the impacts are. What is the impact or benefit or downside to various alternatives from an economic standpoint? And so it's not a detailed level economic study, but it's enough to rate those various alternatives. So they're involved already, but when we do, say, maybe a month from now, or 6 weeks, when these alternatives start getting more refined, they'll be taking a look at them and saying, okay, so what does this mean for now?
Anybody else? Again, I just want to extend my appreciation, department's appreciation for taking the time to come out and listen to the presentation, be more informed. Again, if you have any further questions, feel free to give us a call, jingle us, send us an email. I appreciate your time, and let's go Christmas shop.